Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Young. I'm going to just walk you through a comparison of Scandinavia and Canada based on social and economic policies. My presentation itself, it's not going to be the only view when you look at the differences between Canada and Scandinavian countries. It's just one perspective to look at different angles of policy that drive the overall discussion when we start talking about country comparisons. Here's a little bit about myself. I'm a professional accountant by trade. I've got a background in academia as well as in industry as well as financial solutions. So I've done significant work of analyzing policy as well as work with business to help them compete. And my perspective is going to be looking at the whole gamut. My agenda will be GDP. I'll look at corporate tax. I'll look at value-added tax. I'll look at personal tax, payroll tax, standard of living, and just some overall general comments. And if you take a look at this particular slide, I put Canada in essential. And if you look at our breakout by percentage of GDP by industry, if you look at industry, that's basically getting into our oil and gas sector, manufacturing, forestry, agricultural, all that pieces of construction. That's what you're seeing there, where we're on average about 29% of our GDP is tied in industry. We're actually done better than Denmark, Finland, in terms of our overall dynamics of our economy. Where we're a little different is Norway and Sweden. Now if we take a step back and look at Norway's particular case is driven a lot by oil, so that's why you're seeing their 38% of their economy is that, a little less than manufacturing there. You get into Sweden, most of their industry is driven by manufacturing. From Volvo, different types of manufacturing from automobiles to heavy equipment is manufactured in Sweden. So that's why you're seeing a little bit of the demographics, the dynamics of industry. Let's look at the tax burden now. This looks at corporate rates, and this is what I'm going to focus on. Now, in the middle chart, you're seeing Canada corporate tax 15%. That's the federal rate. Basically, you have to add about 11.5% on average, which is the provincial. So our combined corporate tax rate is about 26.5%. A little less than Norway, but basically Denmark's done better on our corporate tax, so they've basically taken the corporate tax burden and put more of it on a personal tax basis, and we'll see that in our next slides. Now look at the value added tax. Now at a federal level we have a 5% tax, but if you average it, I would say it's probably about close to 12%. On average, or basically is our HST across Canada. We're half of where we are would you be in Denmark, Sweden, Finland, and Norway. So in other words, the value added tax adds to that cost of goods that you purchase at a retail store. Therefore, your cost of living is going up because you're paying more for that price, and you're paying in that bucket of tax dollars to be redistributed. So in the case of Denmark, that's what you're paying there. If we look at personal income taxes, I will use a combined rate of about 50%. We're better than Denmark, Sweden, and Finland, but we're higher than Norway. So in essence, we're pretty competitive to the taxations at a personal level to Scandinavian countries. Here's where you see the big switch here. Our payroll taxes in general are about 8% compared to 31% in Sweden, 14% in Norway, 23% in Finland. So in other words, they're funding more into social programs, into retirement, EI, and other benefits to support people. So in other words, they're paying more of a tax burden to do that. So payroll taxes also work inversely. They also are a cost to business. So it's very much adding more of a cost to that business to operate. If you look at per capita income, this is quickly, Canada is pretty competitive to other countries. The Scandinavian countries have a higher per capita income. Two reasons. They got a smaller population base and a pretty solid GDP as well. Cost of living. This is the key thing that's not discussed. Denmark and Norway are in the top 10 the most expensive jurisdictions in the world to live in. So you're paying to live there. So it's up to people to understand that. It's not just about social programs. It's also looking at how affordable it is to live in those countries. And what after-tax income do you have left over to do things? This is a new survey that just came out. It's the best country in the world. It measures different aspects of it. So you're looking at citizenship, cultural influence, entrepreneurship, heritage, all that is part of looking at the overall factors. And they even got quality of life, which is healthcare. Canada's ranked number 2 in the world as the best countries overall. Sweden's ranked number 5, and then you go down further, you'll see the Scandinavian countries. So overall, Canada does well. Now, let's take a step back there and look at just in a general statement here. This survey was done late last year, so it would be based on federal and provincial policy based on those governments in place at that time. It'll be interesting to see how the survey ends up next year as we have a change in government and see how Canada measures up. That's something to watch out for. Now, I just want to do this slide quickly so you can see things, and it's to clear up some misinformation. Canada properly has funded its social programs from CPP to EI and healthcare and education. We've done a pretty good job of redistributing wealth, and that's what you're getting from here. What you're not seeing and not talked about as much is it's very expensive to operate a business in Scandinavia. In a lot of cases, big companies are starting to relook at where they manufacture based on the cost structures and the tax position there. And it's something you need to bear in mind as you look and do some analysis in terms of making that comparison, because a private sector drives an economy. A private sector creates the income needed necessities to create the wealth that then determines how much social programs can be funded. So that's the things you need to bear in mind. I did this presentation quickly to give you an overview of Scandinavia to kind of put some perspectives around to frame it. The other point that I want to leave on this is Canada trades about 70% of its exports to the US. So we have to be competitive there. So we have to really make sure that we keep our business taxes in line. And Canada overall has got one of the best tax jurisdictions in the world in terms of its competitiveness. So now, that being said, taxation is not the only thing you have to factor in. You have to look at labor rights and hydro rights and all that. But Canada's done pretty decent jobs to be competitive. We have to be that way in terms of what we're trying to operate. This presentation was to give you an overview of Scandinavia versus Canada, trying to frame it in terms of the issues facing Canada. Thank you.